Morning, Sangha. So grateful we're all able to be here today in person and via Hollywood Squares. So I worked on this koan and I thought I got it. I even presented it to Roshi. Thought I got it. I was ready to talk about it today. And then yesterday, it hit me different and threw me off. And you can ask Jose, I struggled a little bit because I thought I had it. And I did have it. I had part of it. But that's the thing about koans is they continue to reveal themselves sometimes. A few days ago, I was here cleaning up and I was working one-on-one with someone. And I came across the list of 100 first koans. That took me years. I can't remember how many years, but many years to complete. And I just glanced at it and I started laughing. I was like, how did I struggle so much with this? Because now it's just, I just looked at the first page and they were as clear as the nose in my face. But this koan. So I did make some notes that I'm going to refer back to because I'm trying to kind of still integrate all of this together. The koan is going to be from this book, The Hidden Man. In Zen Buddhism, there are different teachings. I would say the main teachings or the main books are probably Gateless Gate, the Blue Cliff Record, but the thing about this book is this is 100 stories of awakened women over 25 centuries. And it was a collaborative effort led by editors Florence Kaplow and Susan Moody, with commentary from so many different women who are Zen masters and Zen scholars in today's contemporary society. So in Buddhism, historically women, like a lot of the other religions, have been either underrepresented or not represented. And on the rare occasion that we were represented, we were representing sex and desire. So I was really feeling this koan. I put my horns on the other day. Women were not allowed to attend monasteries unless they had permission from a family member, because women were expected to be in service of the family, to take care of the children, take care of the home, do the laundry. But studying Buddhism was not something women were allowed to do. It has been a hard-fought battle for women to study Buddhism. In fact, for much of the history of Buddhism, it was a commonly held belief that between monks, nuns, lay people, that it wasn't even possible to be enlightened inside of a woman's body. Many monastic men believed that women were dangerous obstacles to awakening. So women have fought hard to be able to practice and learn Buddhism. Some women even went as far as mutilating their faces in hopes that they might be allowed into the monastery to study, mutilating their faces so that they might not be attractive to the men who be less desirable. Okay, so now I'm going to read the koan. It is case number 45, and the name of it is The Old Woman Recognizes Mazu. When Master Mazu Daoyi returned to his native place for a short visit, he was warmly welcomed by his countrymen. But an old woman who used to be his next door neighbor said, "I thought that all the commotion was caused by the visit of some extraordinary personage. In fact, it's none other than that little chap who is the son of Ma, the garbage collector." On hearing this, Mazu improvised the following poem. "I advise you not to return to your native place, for no one can be a sage in his own home. This old woman by the side of the brook still calls me the garbage man's son. So I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing Master Mazu. He's this celebrated person. He's warmly received. There's a lot of commotion in his native place. And the people are making much commotion. And then there's this little blast from the past in the form of an old neighbor that comes along and sort of shakes things up and reminds him of his authentic self. She quickly brings him from this lofty personage of being celebrated by his countrymen back to the little chap who is the son of Ma, the garbage man's son. This little woman is not, she's not formally trained. She's not in a monastery. She's not being celebrated. She's just there in her authentic self. She is at home where she is. And she's able to cause this interaction between her and Mazu that inspires him to make this poem. And in this poem, he's advising us not to return to our native place. He's telling us that we can't be a sage in our own home. And then he kind of tells us how he came to understand this. The old woman by the side of the brook, she still calls me the garbage man. Notice the difference between native place and home. Native place typically refers to where you were born. If I went back to my native place of coastal Massachusetts after being gone for 40 years or so, I'm sure that the neighbors would probably see me as the dirty little tomboy, the youngest of the Leonard family. And that's okay. Clearly, I have changed, but that is definitely a fabric or a thread in the fabric of my life. There's a bit of a weighty, nuanced difference in not denying your past experiences, your past positions held, your past relationships with other people, versus identifying as them. That's kind of what hit me when I was walking the dog last night. If I identify as my profession or position in relationships or whatever, if I'm identifying with, or if one is identifying with wealth or identifying with poverty, whatever you're identifying with, That's left brain, that's thinking. And if you've ever thought about the saying, come back to your senses. So like right now, if you're thinking about this Dharma talk and you're coming up with some idea about it or something, stop. Come back to your senses. Come back to your breathing, your listening, your seeing, and be open for what happens. If I am identifying as anything that is limiting my potential to be open, receptive, and compassionate and curious about the moment I'm in. Identifying as something is a quick way to be bound by the form of it and to suffer. So beware of labels. This koan seems to ask if we have an attachment to a version of ourselves. And is that version of ourselves something that we think is good or bad? Is that version of ourselves something we think is better than? Does one version feel more comfortable than the other? Is there a version of ourselves that we deny? Working with this koan has illuminated an area in my life that on subconscious level, I kept in the shadows. When I moved up here from South Florida, I left a part of my life behind, sort of in a way. I left the law enforcement years behind because I moved up here and people didn't know me as that. So I was kind of happy to drop. But this isn't something that I really consciously realized until working with this koan. And then working with this koan, I realized that I didn't even have my law enforcement experience listed on LinkedIn. It's just and that's a pretty colorful thread in the fabric of my life. But the reality is I was choosing to identify. I was choosing to identify with the mental health profession. Why? Because that's more comfortable for me and it tends to be more comfortable for people I interact with. But it was working with this koan that brought me to realize that. So there I was trying to deny some of the colorful threads in my tapestry. So much work, so much delusion. So years ago, Roshi asked me to do a talk on law enforcement. Well, I have not done that talk yet, and I'm thinking this is why. But I appreciate the wisdom I've learned from this koan. So continuing to look at the koan, what is home that Master Mazu is talking about? Is home the place where we rest our heads at night? It occurs to me that Master Mazu is talking about our true home, awake awareness, consciousness. And you are always in your true home. The pure awareness is always there. It's always accessible. Sometimes it's just a mindful breath away. And although Master Mazu says we can't be a sage in our own home, I originally took that as if I try to go back home to Massachusetts. they're not gonna see me for who I am now. They're gonna see me as the dirty little kid with skinned up knees riding her bike, you know, the little tomboy that I was. That's my native place, but my home is my awake awareness. And in that home, there can be no sages, just awareness. So Master Mazu is this highly trained Zen master in the story. And the wise old woman right next door ignited this insight for him. Everyone is a Buddha. Then I got to thinking, who are some of the old ladies in my life? Who can I thank for causing me to remember I am not who I think I am? For helping to bring me back to consciousness and curiosity, rather than a deluded dreamlike state of thinking, I am, insert your delusion du jour here. I celebrate the old women in my life who help me to continue to shed the constrictions of form. It is much easier to be full of who we think we are and full of things and full of thoughts and ideas and the way things should be or what's good and what's bad than it is to be of all. So I celebrate the old women in my life, like Sensei Andy. When he asked a couple of Thursdays ago, what do koans mean to us and what have they done for us in our lives? Well, this is a great example. And even viewing the koan list, the first 100 koans, that's also a great example because I suffered through those koans. I really struggled with them. But they must be doing something because now I see them for what they are. Or maybe partially what they are. And the power of koan practice continues to reveal itself in many ways. And it's my job to just be present and open and to see what happens and what means. And for an extra little zing today, I'm missing the last several pages of my talk. So here we go, which is okay. Because a lot of what I want to do is ask you, are you able to be here right now without a story? And are you able to see the old women in your life and what they've taught you? Sometimes the lessons are easier than others. Sometimes we might be in a place that it just hits us right. We get it. Sometimes it might cause us some suffering. And that is something, I look at that as a flag, attention needed here. Not a red flag, just a flag, attention needed here. If I'm having some sort of reaction to something, it's coming from my thinking mind. If I'm thinking about it, if I'm judging it, then it needs to be sat with. For me, it's a prescription to sit. Some of the other old women in my life is Rochelle. When I was complaining about, I was tired. And he said, who's tired? Which for a second annoyed me. I'm tired, I feel it. But he's right. Thank you for helping me create that space between me and the problem or the perceived problem. Sensei Mike, a couple weeks ago, when there was a Dharma talk going on, and you remembered your sense of connection as a child when you looked at the sky. You brought me back to Massachusetts, to the picnic table, where I was laying on the picnic table, and I was feeling the sky in me, and I was looking at the little dots coming from the sky. Somebody once told me that they were neutrinos. I don't know if that's true or not, but I was one with all of that, and you reminded me of that, so thank you. And my Dharma sister, Angie, thank you for reminding me that I am not my profession. Helping others heal might be something that I do sometimes, but it certainly isn't who I am. So thank you for that. Thank you for reminding me. And thank you to all of the members of the Sangha that often we don't even know the ways that we kind of shake each other's trees, you know? And it's that shaking of the trees that, hey, you're not who you think you are. Come back here, come back to your senses. That I am so grateful for. And so I'd like to leave you with this. I would like to remind you that you are not the voice in your head. That is primarily the left side of your brain. And also to think of your mind as a digestive system. What are you putting into it and what's coming out? And I'd also like to ask you, what do you think about this koan? What resonates with you? Are there people in your life that have shaken your tree? Can you be here now without a story? Thank you.